Good evening, friends. I, on behalf of Beyond Law CLC, welcome you all to yet another engaging session. And amongst us, we have Mr. AJ Jawad, a senior mediator and a trainer. And those who have been connected with Beyond Law CLC know that Mr. Jawad had given his insights, and that session was well received, wherein he, along with Mr. Justice Kanan and Sriram Panchu, had given the insights. Today, as we are growing into this lockdown and unlockdown times, we found that communication skills has taken a different dimensions. I think that before these lockdowns, we never thought that there could be a session on speaking on communication skills on online mediation, to the extent that what are the communication skills required for an online. To have a webinar on that topic, probably 6 months ago, we will have the insights from Mr. Jawad on this aspect as to whether he could have perceived that there could be a session on as to how there could be an online mediation and what are the skills required. If at one point of time, if at least I personally feel, or the friends with whom I had talked yesterday about this topic, they said that how could you even perceive that there could be a webinar on a topic of communication skills, and that too on online? Because they say that any communication, until unless you have direct physical interaction, it's very, very difficult to have the insights. And that is one of the issues which I can say just catalyzed when we talked to Mr. Jawad. I know that he had pressing times of engagements, but yet we could press upon him to all persons pan-India wanted to hear him. And those who know about Mr. Jawad, they know that he's a trained mediator and he's much sought after. And the fact that recently when I was trying to request him, as well as I can say with somewhat this thing, trying to tap him from his limited time, that he was quite busy with the MNLU, giving the topics, and MNLU having a tie-up for his insights only gives us a flip that we actually have tapped the right resource person for the topic, which itself has a different dimensions. And today I am seeing a lot of my friends from Punjab, Haryana, who have joined: Monica Jalota, Vibha Dhiman, and I can just chip in as to who have joined. It shows the popularity of Mr. Jawad, not only pan-India, but more I am recognizing them because they are all from my part of, that is Punjab, Haryana High Court. And I am also seeing Nandini Gore, and his insights have been of a different level, that taking and training people pan-India, that is, he has not only be part of training in Ranchi, Lucknow, Agartala, Mavilkara, Wayanad, Aurangabad, and he also took a workshop conflict resolution training program of World Bank. After once one looks into his resume, one feels that the mediation is actually what we all talk about, that it is the next thing to happen. And after seeing Mr. Jawad, I think that we shouldn't say it's next thing to happen. I'm saying he's already into a thing and he's making a next thing. As they say, successful people don't do different things, but they do it differently. And that's what Mr. Jawad has given. And without taking much time, and once we are talking about communication skills, I think that we should hold you on, and because more people are interested to hear about Jawad, and then we will also take insights from Monica, who's a good friend of ours, and who is also a trained mediator. And since we are having a lot of mediators, I can just look upon it. It shows the immense popularity. A trained mediator wanting to listen to from another trained mediator. I'm just reminded when Horus was asked, how would you like? He said that one king would like another king he treats. So if one is trying to learn the communication skills from a person, it only shows that another person respects him and feels that he can take you to a different tangent of life, and that too during these testing times. Over to you, Mr. Jawad. I know that you are smiling, and your smiles are I think, the first key to the success of a communication skills. They say a smile goes a mile. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Vikash. I'm really honored to be here. And thank you for the very glowing introduction. Whether I deserve it or not, I was feeling really good with that kind of introduction, undoubtedly. And it's great to see so many people here who are experienced and trained mediators, who are trainers in their own right, attending this webinar. Though I must say that, to all of them, it will be like carrying coal to Newcastle. Because what I'm going to talk about is basically, the elementary aspects of communication, particularly in the context of the new normal that we are now witnessing. That is thanks to the COVID pandemic.
Mr. Jawad, I think if you could just switch over at some place, because I thought once I was communicating with you, the bandwidth was showing as if it is low at my end, but it's reflecting at your end. So the video recording sector will be. Yeah.
Okay, let me see what.
Right now it's fine, but prior to that, probably it was just waiting for me to say that Mr. Jawad bandwidth is low. It's fine. If it happens, then we can check it out.
All right. Thank you. So thank you very much. Friends, now as we have seen, this COVID pandemic has actually fast forwarded the adoption of virtual platforms for various purposes, including online court hearings. Even classes now in schools are going on online. We have online arbitrations. And of course, we have online mediations also. Probably, I think what may have happened over maybe 10 years down the line has actually happened in about 6 months. So virtually it has been fast forwarded. So we are now seeing virtual hearings of court cases, a host of webinars that are being conducted online. So enabling people from different parts of the country, different parts of the world to take part, to attend, and share our knowledge and share our insights into various topics. Online mediations are now being done by the court annex mediation centers. And also we are having now online training programs. As a matter of fact, Vikash was mentioning MNLU, that is the Maharashtra National Law University. This year they have launched a course MA in mediation, Masters in Mediation. And I've had the honor and privilege of conducting the very first paper in that, the basics of mediation. So it is being done completely online. So the question is, what are the communication skills that we need to do online mediations? And also, how different are these from other online proceedings? As we all know that, mediation has a completely different approach to dispute resolution. Now, while litigation or arbitration have a very clinical approach to conflict and are more, law-centric, rights and obligations are decided on, formulae which are defined by the law. Now, mediation is more party-centric. So while the court or the arbitrator hears the case, the mediator listens to the parties. Now, please note the subtle difference. The court or arbitrator hears the case, the mediator listens to the parties. It is a very subtle difference, but a very profound difference. So that is why, proceedings in court are regarded. So what is heard by the court are the facts, meaning that, the court hears the empirical data that is admissible under the law. Parties to a dispute before the court become at some point of time like pieces on a chessboard to be moved and, removed regardless of their will in the matter. I think mediation is probably the only dispute resolution system that is party-centric, because it recognizes the people behind the dispute as people, not as just as chess pieces. It recognizes them as human beings with feelings, emotions, with their own biases, prejudices, which all of us are victims of, and all of which actually drive the dispute and the larger conflict that actually underlies the dispute. Unlike a court hearing a case, the mediator listens to the parties. So naturally, there's a lot of emphasis on the communication skills of a mediator. Now, before we dive deep into communication skills for online mediation, now for those who are new to mediation, the concept of mediation, the uninitiated, we need to understand what are the communication skills that are needed in mediation. I mean, even if it's a physical mediation, face-to-face mediation, as we call it. What are the communication skills that are required? Because as we all know, communication is a two-way process. There is a transmission of information and there is a reception of information. So there is a transmitter and a receiver. In other words, a speaker and a listener. So here in mediation, it is always the mediator who's the listener, because the mediator speaks less and listens more. I see Mr. Venkatraman, senior advocate here. He's also a trainer, and one of his favorite drawings is he draws a face on the whiteboard, and he draws two big ears and a small mouth to emphasize that mediator should speak less and listen more. Now, this information may be transmitted through words or through non-verbal clues, or what is known as body language. It is commonly said, that 7% of our communication is through actual words that we speak. 38% is how we speak those words, the tonality or tone of voice, and 55% is the body language. So what happens when we get trained as mediators, we are told that it is not enough to just hear the words alone, but it is also important to listen to the tone of voice and also, observe the accompanying cluster of body language cues. Like maybe the party sitting posture, the eye movements, the hand movements, how the feet are positioned. All these things matter, because information conveyed through the words has to be actually viewed through these various prisms to understand whether what is being told is what is being meant, because what is being told might be completely different from what the parties really mean. Now, all put together constitute what are called as listening skills. Now, one thing we need to know is, while receiving information, the receiver is also transmitting information. So when you're listening to somebody, the speaker is also watching you, okay, to see whether you are receiving the information, whether you're really interested in what is being told to you, whether you're understanding the information correctly, and so on and so forth. So the receiver, that is the listener or the mediator, has to be trained in what are called as active listening skills. Active listening skills. So now let us see what these active listening skills are. First of all, the non-verbal cues, because we said that 55% of what is spoken is in the form of body language. Because the words might say something, but the body language might indicate something completely different. So while observing the non-verbal cues being transmitted, the listener should also transmit non-verbal cues to the speaker to show that she is listening attentively. So here, the way you sit, the space between you and the speaker, and your body language make a lot of difference. So when we train mediators, we call it the solar principle, and we tell mediators that this solar principle has to be followed. SOLER, solar. Now, what does the S stand for? It stands for the symmetry or the spatial dynamics between the speaker and the listener. So you neither sit too close, nor you sit too far, and you sit in a way that you're facing the speaker. And if there are two speakers, like two parties are there, the mediator sits in such a way that she is equidistant from both the parties, neither towards one party nor away from the other party. The O stands for open posture or gestures. Now, crossing the arms, turning away from the speaker, even crossing legs may sometimes be regarded as closed gestures, which show that you're not really interested in what is being told to you. Culture plays a very important role in this, and this may not be universal. The L stands for leaning forward. You can lean forward slightly towards the speaker to show that you're interested in what the speaker is saying. The E stands for eye contact. So you look at the speaker to show that you are paying attention. The R stands for relaxed. Now your posture, your tone of voice, and your other body language should convey that you're in a relaxed state of mind, because the speaker, sometimes what happens is, if you are agitated, if you're not relaxed, it can get transmitted to the party. Now, if on the other hand, if the speaker is agitated, your relaxed demeanor would get mirrored in the speaker's mind and help the speaker to calm down. You know, we all have these what are called as mirroring neurons in our brain. So we reflect what we see. Then we also talk about, among the active listening skills, what are the verbal responses that mediators should give the parties when they're listening to them. So using extenders like, I see, oh, okay. So these show that the listener is actually listening. Second is reflecting. Reflecting is where the listener listens for the emotions or feelings and repeats back the emotions or feelings the speaker has expressed. Now, reflecting does not require you to accept or agree with the speaker's feelings. You just show that, you know, you are to demonstrate that you're listening on an emotional level for the speaker's emotions. Like, for example, you may say, so the way you were treated made you feel very angry, or that makes you feel frustrated, or you feel you're feeling a lack of respect. So you're reflecting back the emotion to show that you are understanding the emotion. Empathy is also, reflecting is also one way of showing your empathy, because it is an understanding of the current and past emotions of another person. So basically, you're trying to show that you are aware of the other person's feelings. Then we summarize whatever is told to us, we summarize. It is only to show the speaker that the listener has accurately and completely heard and understood the points that are being made by the speaker. Now, one very important technique, another technique that is used is called reframing. Reframing is a form of rephrasing in which the listener, that is the mediator, rewords a speaker's complaints and helps the speaker move into problem-solving mode. So you're helping the speaker to focus on the interests and needs rather than the position. So the main objective of this is to change the focus of the party from the past negative events to a positive way of looking at the future. So the main elements that go into reframing are converting the statement from past to future, converting the statement from negative to positive, converting the statement from positions to interests. So the idea is to change the focus. Now, for example, speaker says, I'm tired of the way he always makes me late. So the listener, the mediator responds, so punctuality is very important to you. So what's happening here? The speaker is complaining about somebody, and you're focusing on what is important, punctuality. So you focus on the future, you change the focus from something negative to something positive. So what is needed is to observe punctuality. Now, for example, the speaker says, my husband is around, he's always on the phone. I never seem to be able to get through to him. So you respond by saying, so you want better access to your husband. So I hope you're getting the point. What exactly happens in reframing? You change the focus from past to future and from negative to positive and from positions to interests. There's also something called neutral reframing, which is actually restating a hostile statement or a question in a neutral way. So what you do is you extract the hostile or accusatory or inflammatory language and present it in a very neutral way. The whole idea for this is to keep the conversation in a very positive mode and at the same time retain the content of a statement or question. Now, for example, if supposing the party is saying, that's a lie, the other person is speaking a lie. So you respond by saying you have a different recollection of what happened. Okay. Now, for example, the speaker says that her dog is vicious and needs to be put down. So your response would be, one of the issues is the dog's behavior, and another issue is how to handle things in future. So you reframe it in a very neutral way by focusing on what needs to be done rather than the negativity that is being conveyed by the speaker. Another method is restating, where the listener repeats or rephrases the speaker's statement of fact, law, or any other data, any other information that the party is conveying to you. So restating can be just, rephrasing the speaker's comments in the speaker's words, or paraphrasing the speaker's comments in your own words, or a verbatim repetition. The whole idea of this is to confirm that a speaker's statement of facts, positions, arguments have been accurately heard and understood. For example, you say that, as far as you can recall, you have not been late to work even once. Your recollection is that the contract was signed on so-and-so date. Your work has been turned in on a timely basis to the best of your knowledge. So these are all the verbal responses that you give. And another thing that one of the most important techniques in the communication skills that a mediator learns is to ask effective questions. Like you say, tell me more about this. Tell me about the background of the situation. Tell me what happened. Help me to understand this better. Help me to understand your thinking. What is important to you? What are your concerns? What do you wish to accomplish? What do you want to achieve? Now, these are all, questions that invite the speaker to speak a little more. They are not closed questions, like how probably you may use in a cross-examination. Questions that elicit merely a yes or a no. Instead, these questions invite the speaker to elaborate a little more, to speak a little more. So these in brief are the communication skills that mediators use in mediations. Now the question is, what happens when mediations are done online? Can all these skills be used effectively? For example, how would you observe the body language of the parties to see, whether the words are matching the meaning that they intend to convey? How do you show empathy? What about eye contact? Now, eye contact is one of the biggest challenges. Now, if I look at the screen, at my camera, it looks as if I'm looking at each one of you sitting over there. If I'm looking at the screen, you really don't know whom I'm looking at. If there are 80, 90 people here, nobody can say that whom I'm looking at. Whereas if you see in a physical space, in a mediation which is taking place face to face, you're looking at one party, listening to that party, and all you need to do is turn your head and look at the other party to show that you want to listen to that party. You don't even have to say anything. That party will understand when you just turn and look at that party after this party finishes, that you want that person to speak. Even in a large scale gathering like this, if you're supposing it's a physical, let's say that it's a physical seminar that is going on. If I want to ask a question to somebody, I can straight away point to that person. That person might be sitting right down in the last row, and I can say, you gentleman who's sitting in the, second from the last, can you tell me what this is? Now that's an advantage. But here, the biggest disadvantage of an online platform is you really don't know with whom you have the eye contact. Now, undoubtedly, these are all the constraints that we experience on online platforms. But there are also many advantages. Virtual mediations are time and space agnostic. You can fix mediations whenever convenient for all the parties. It can even be over the weekends when they are free and you're free. You don't have to be worried about fixing a venue or traveling to a venue to conduct or participate in a mediation. Now, the only challenge is to communicate effectively. Now, we spoke of the solar principle. Now, the solar principle completely goes out of the window, because where is the question of, maintaining symmetry between the parties? I'm sitting somewhere on the East Coast Road, and each one of you are sitting in your respective places all over the city, all over the country. So where is the question of any spatial dynamics coming between us? Absolutely nothing. Now, you can't see me below probably my shoulders. So I'm a person who, does a lot of hand gestures while speaking. Now, most of the time, I don't think you can even see whether I folded my hands or whether my hands are open or whether I'm moving my hands while I'm speaking. You don't know what is happening. Okay. Now, leaning forward, if I lean too close to the camera, you'll probably won't be able to see the top of my head. Or if I move far away, my face may not be very clear. Okay. Eye contact, of course, we discussed. No question. What you can do is relaxed. In the solar principle, symmetry, open posture, leaning forward, eye contact, all these become completely irrelevant because it's impossible to demonstrate any of these body language cues or signals that you would like to convey. But one thing you can definitely convey is your relaxed way of speaking or your relaxed presence on the screen. If you are relaxed, automatically the other person will also be relaxed. Particularly in a mediation context, it becomes very important for you to be relaxed. Now, as far as the verbal responses are concerned, you can use all these verbal responses. Now, of course, in a webinar of this type, if all of you keep saying, I see, oh, okay, then there will be a cacophony over there. My voice will be drowned and nobody will be able to listen to anybody. So you're observing silently, you have muted your mics and you're listening to me, right? But in a one-to-one context, for example, in a mediation, if one party is sitting opposite you or two parties are sitting opposite you, it's possible for you to use these extenders to show that you're listening. Reflecting is one exercise you can definitely do because you can always tell them that, for example, what we said, so the way you treated made you feel angry. So you can use those words to show that you're understanding the emotion that is going on. So you can show your empathy through your words. You may not be able to show empathy through any other means, but definitely by the way you respond to what the party is saying, you can demonstrate your empathy. And it is also called as digital empathy. Like everything digital, even empathy has become digital today. Summarizing is something you can do. You can always summarize whatever is spoken to you. You can summarize very concisely so that you reflect the main points what the party has told you, so that you show the party that you have understood the crux of whatever information has been given to you. Now, reframing, as I said earlier, is a very powerful technique. And there is nothing on an online platform that prevents you from reframing what the parties are saying to you. Okay? So, by reframing, what you're actually doing is you're moving them into a problem-solving mode. You're helping them to focus on their interests and needs rather than their positions. You're changing them from a negative perspective to a positive perspective. Now, that is a technique you can definitely use on an online platform also. Neutral reframing is something that you can easily do. Okay. Restating is something you can easily do. So here, the only restriction, as far as I can see, and I hope all of you will agree with me, is only with regard to the physical space, the symmetry, the body language. Apart from that, every other the verbal cues that you need to give to show that you are listening, to demonstrate that you are actively listening to what is being told to you, can be done on an online platform also. Okay. So having said that, now there are certain things that we need to, follow in online mediations because, see, the parties are coming before you. They are sitting in their respective homes or offices or wherever they are. You are sitting in your place. There is no physical proximity and there's no way that they can see you. They don't know whether you're tall or short, right? Or whether you're wearing a skirt or a lungi or a pant or shorts and sitting there with just a coat on top, which I'm not actually, I'm fully dressed. So they don't know that, okay? And they don't know who you are. They come for the first time. So what becomes very important is to establish rapport with the parties. So in order to be able to effectively do online mediation, it's very important that you establish the rapport. It's very important that you gain the party's trust and confidence. And that rapport must be a genuine rapport. You can't fake it. So before people are willing to settle, they must actually feel that their interests are truly understood. So one of the tenets of online mediation practice is to, subtly work in such a way that the parties leave feeling as if they have, reached an agreement largely on their own. So that is a strategy that is, actually deepens their commitment to honor the agreement because it is their agreement. So it's very important that we make them feel that whatever has come out of the mediation has been their own, a product of their own mind and not something that has been imposed upon them. So there are some very important, rules of etiquette that need to be observed in online mediations. First and foremost is respect the parties and their opinions. So what happens in online mediations, as I told you, they may be coming from different backgrounds, different cultures, different communities, groups, caste, whatever it might be. And there's no way you can easily find out that, because maybe if you see them physically, you might be able to guess, oh, this person is from this place, or this person's culture is like this. But on an online platform, it's very difficult to find out that. So it becomes all the more important that you respect their feelings and opinions, though they may be different from what you feel or what your opinion is. So what is very important is that don't, be very careful when you're cracking jokes or when you're trying to bring some humor or you're trying to, express any opinion. Be very careful that your opinion doesn't clash with their opinion. You don't offend them in any manner. Make them feel that, you actually are either looking down upon them or maybe, thinking about them in a way that doesn't make them feel comfortable. So you have to be very careful. Try to, as far as possible, keep out any kind of jokes or, jokes which might be hurting any community sentiment or caste sentiment or gender sentiment. So you have to be very sensitive to all these things when you're doing an online mediation. You have to be sensitive to all these things even otherwise. It's not that you can, go around making all kinds of comments about people's backgrounds. But on an online platform, it's all the more important that you're very cautious about that. Of course, we saw about reframing and summarizing. You respect the privacy. So there might be a lot of, exchange of emails between the parties and the mediator. Be very careful that you don't forward those emails to third parties, except with the permission of the, parties. Now, you have to keep in mind that all private email is considered to be a copyright by the original author. So therefore, you can't, exchange any information from the parties with anybody else. Never compromise on confidentiality, because you will be having, mediators that are aware that we have joint sessions with the parties where we speak to both the parties together. Then we take them into private sessions where we tell them that whatever is discussed with them is going to be completely confidential. Now, sometimes what happens is when you're talking to one party, you finish with this party and then you go to the other party. Unintentionally, willy-nilly, by mistake, you might say something which might disclose to the other party what exactly has happened in your private meeting with the first party. So you have to choose your words very carefully. You should make sure that no part of the confidential information is shared with anybody else or with the other party, particularly what transpires in a private session. Because in a private session, you are assuring the parties of confidentiality. Not that confidentiality is less important in a joint session, but that is vis-a-vis the outside world. The parties vis-a-vis the outside world, but here it is between the parties. Inter se itself, information has to be kept confidential. Pay a lot of attention to your tone of voice, how you speak, because normally what happens, we have a tendency that when we are speaking on the phone or when we are speaking online, we are not very sure whether the other person is listening to our voice. Okay, we feel that only if we shout, the other person will be able to listen. So we have a natural tendency to speak in a very loud tone of voice. We raise our voice very much, but that is very bad. Try to avoid shouting when you're talking to somebody on an online platform. If the connectivity is bad, you just tell them that, look, let us wait for the connectivity to improve, or we'll just sign off and sign in again, but try not to shout as much as you can. Okay. And when I say by, tone of voice, see, remember one thing. In a face-to-face mediation, you are fully sitting over there in front of the party is in front of you. Okay, so you're able to see each other. Whereas here, sometimes you might be doing online mediation purely on let's say a WhatsApp call, or maybe, just on the telephone. It's possible. Or mediations might be done on, sometimes, because of the less bandwidth or something, you may have to put off your cameras and then talk to the parties. So in such circumstances, your tone of voice matters a lot. See, tone of voice is so important that it can distort a message that is sought to be conveyed if you don't emphasize on the right words. I always give this example of a sentence, a simple sentence. I never sold that horse to you. Now, this sentence can be understood in 6 different ways. If I emphasize on I never sold that horse to you, it means somebody else sold the horse to you. I never sold that horse to you. If I say I never sold that horse to you, it may mean that it's not my business to sell horses. So why do you say that I have sold you a horse? It's not at all my business. I've never sold a single horse in my life. I never sold that horse to you. Now the emphasis on the sold. Maybe you stole the horse, or maybe I just gifted the horse to you and now you're saying you paid a price for it. I gave it to you free. I never sold that horse to you. Which means that's a white horse. I sold you a black horse and now you're showing me a white horse. I never sold that horse to you. I sold a donkey or a bull or a cow, but I never sold the horse. I never sold that horse to you. I sold it to somebody else. So you see how with the tone of voice, the emphasis on particular words changes the whole meaning of the word, of the sentence. So you have to be very careful about how you speak, particularly on an online platform, because sometimes, faces may not be visible, facial expressions may not be visible, or you may not be much from the facial expressions because of distortions, but the tone of voice does matter, how you speak. Another important thing is, try to avoid any kind of inappropriate material, or, whether if you're having some chat messages, be very careful that whatever applies to, like we said, be respectful. The first thing we spoke about is being respectful. So continue that respect even when you're exchanging, chat messages between the parties, and discourage, always private chats while the mediation is going on. Now, platforms like Zoom and all that give the host the power to, switch off the chats. So it's always better you switch off the chat, don't allow the parties to chat with each other, because sometimes a party, might send some abusive message to the other party on the chat, on a private chat, and you won't know what is happening, and suddenly there will be a flare-up. So you have to be very careful about that. So try to avoid, sending any kind of inappropriate message that might be misconstrued, or, be very careful with the words that you use in your messages, or your whatever you may be posting, or any documents that you might be exchanging. Be very careful about that. Be forgiving. If someone states something that you really find offensive, directly mention it to the speaker. Now, please remember that whatever handicaps that you are suffering from on an online platform, the other person also might be suffering from the same. And the other person might be, very new to this form of communication. They may not be aware of, online, they may not have communicated before online with anybody. So maybe they don't know how to communicate. Maybe they may say something that might be offensive. Clarify with them. Ask them what they mean by that. So that gives the opportunity to the speaker to clarify that if it was unintended. So the speaker is the best person to clarify that. So it's better to ask them, see, this is what I heard you saying. And can you please clarify this to me? It's always better to get the clarity, and don't be too harsh. Try to be, a little soft with them, be forgiving. Brevity is best. Try to be as brief as you can, as concise as you can, when you're contributing to a discussion on an online platform. Try to avoid talking too much. Right now, I'm talking too much, but that is because it's a one-sided game. I'm supposed to speak to you on online media. I have no other choice but to speak to you. But in a mediation, the speaking, as I said earlier, is done more by the parties and less by the mediator. So try to avoid speaking too much. Give more time to the parties to speak. And also, when you're speaking, space out your words. Because sometimes we have the tendency of speaking very fast. Okay. Now, when you're in a face-to-face situation, sometimes it will be people can understand what you're saying. But on an online platform, what happens? Sometimes the words may not come out clearly. So if you're speaking, express each word very clearly as far as possible so that people understand what exactly you're saying. And there is no misunderstanding arising from, they're misinterpreting a word or thinking that, giving some other meaning to the word. So try to speak clearly, slowly, and briefly, as brief as you can. Always stick to the point. Don't waste other people's time by going off on irrelevant tangents, and also ensure that other parties do not do so. Now, one of the techniques when to, make, parties understand that you have understood what they are saying and they don't have to keep repeating it is reflecting and restating what they have said. Now, I was doing one mediation recently, and what was happening was it was a matrimonial dispute, and the man did not want to live with the wife, but she was going on and on talking about the past. Through several sessions, I've heard her, and I can, virtually verbatim repeat what happened along with the date and time and everything. So I have heard it so many times. So what I tried to do is I tried to restate to her. I said, this is what I heard you saying. I have heard you and I think I have understood you. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I restated whatever she had told with the dates and all that. Now that satisfied her and we were able to move on from there. So try to restate and try to reflect whatever the parties are saying. Okay. Okay, humor is good. Try to use some humor to reduce tension. But as I said earlier, be very careful that your jokes do not belittle any person, any community, any group, any nationality, any caste, any state, any language, or trivialize any beliefs or faith of any of the parties. Okay, it's very important that you respect their beliefs, respect their faith. Now, the mediation that I told you about, the counsel told me that, this girl feels that from the astrological perspective, this is not a good time. And she feels that by the end of the year, things might change for the good for her. So she doesn't want to take any decision now. Now that's something I have to respect. I can't tell her that what you're telling me is ridiculous. How is it going to change by the end of the year? I may not believe it, but that's her belief and I need to respect that belief. So I told her, what do you want me to do now? Do you want me to close this mediation and tell the court to refer it back again in December? By the time the good time or the bad time or whatever is over? Or would you like me to continue with the mediation and see what can be done about it? Then the counsel said, no, we want you to continue with the mediation. Let's see what happens in the next hearing. And if things stand the way they are, then it's better we go back to the court. I said, fine. So you see, you respect their faith and belief. You don't challenge that. You don't question that. No matter how strongly you believe against that. Okay. You may not believe in many things. You may not even believe in God. You may not believe in religion. That's your problem. But don't try to trivialize the faith or belief of any of the parties. Now there are some, do's and don'ts which you need to follow while you're doing, on an online platform. This applies across the board, whether you're doing mediation or whether you're conducting a meeting or a conference or whatever. What you need to do is you need to mute your microphone whenever you're not speaking. So even if you're alone in the room, sometimes what happens is the background noise can be a very annoying distraction. And what will happen is it will stifle the flow of the meeting. It will distract people and obstruct their thought processes. So when you're not speaking, keep the microphone off. It's always better that way. Because what happens is then the other person is able to concentrate on speaking whatever is in their minds and conveying the information to you. Please be aware of your video settings. Okay. Be very careful about what is happening behind you. Okay. So place always, the computer or your laptop or whatever device that you're using in such a way that if anybody is coming and going from behind, it is not visible on the screen. Be very careful. You can also create a virtual background, but sometimes virtual backgrounds can be, very distracting. Okay. Now, be careful, because when you're speaking, many times what happens is in online meetings and online discussions, people don't see that their microphone is muted and they start talking. They continue for a minute or 2 minutes, a monologue continues, which no one is able to hear. So please make sure that your microphone is unmuted before you start talking. Now, your camera position is very important. Neither keep your camera too high, nor too low, or hooked onto some different monitor. See, the weird camera angles can be very distracting, can be very unflattering during video conference calls. So make sure that your camera is at an eye level and on the monitor you plan to use for the conference. Because many times what happens is people place the camera in such a way that either you're able to see the top of their head or you're able to see the bottom of their face. So that you have to be very conscious of. Look at yourself in the screen and see how your camera is positioned. Okay. Now make sure that the lighting in the room is very good. Side lighting is the best. One thing that can be very, which can put off people is if they feel that they are talking to somebody who's sitting in a dungeon. So if there's not enough light, it will look as if your face will not be clearly visible. And people will feel as if they are talking to somebody who's sitting in a deep cave or something. Try to use as much natural light as you can from windows, or simply turn on the overhead light, which will brighten the room. Always wear appropriate clothing. In fact, what happened was recently we were doing one program in which some judges were also there. And I found this gentleman sitting wearing a lungi without even a shirt. Of course, you are at home and you have every right to feel comfortable. But when you are attending a meeting, it's very important that you wear appropriate clothing. Not just what you wear on top, what is visible in the camera, but also what you wear below. Because if you're keeping your camera on and getting up all of a sudden, you certainly don't want people to see whether you're wearing shorts or a petticoat or a lungi or a track pant or something like that. If you can't wear a coat and a shirt on top and just wear a pair of shorts underneath. So it doesn't work, because you have to be very careful. It's all right. If you're not going to stand up, it's all right. But if you're going to stand up, make sure that you put off your camera if you're not dressed appropriately. But at least what is visible in the camera should be appropriate clothing. Okay. Try to wear for men, it is better to wear a shirt. For women, it's better to wear a sari or a salwar kameez or a dress, whichever is appropriate. Please try to avoid sitting in your pajamas or your nighties or whatever. It looks very offensive. So please don't do that. Always wear, clean professional clothing. That's very important. Now, next is your background. Okay, so what kind of decoration is there? It should be work appropriate. The background should be clean. If supposing somebody is looking in your background, they should not be able to see a lot of garbage lying around or things scattered around. So if your room is looking like a college dormitory, after the students have had some a party in the night or something, it's better to clean it or find a different room which is cleaner. It also includes your desk. Don't keep multiple coffee mugs, dishes and trash on the surface, because anything that might fall off or might get pushed off will create a ruckus. Always test your microphone before the video call, especially if it's an important meeting. Test it by video conferencing somebody before the meeting. Okay, it's nothing worse than nothing is worse than actually trying to share something critical and not being able to communicate clearly because your audio clarity and volume are poor. It happened right in this webinar itself. In the beginning, my connectivity was bad and I couldn't be heard properly. Now, but that is something that is unavoidable because you can't control the internet bandwidth. Unfortunately, that keeps fluctuating. But try to use, as far as possible, headphones with a mic or something like that, so that you're heard very clearly, provided the bandwidth also supports you. Always when you're in a group, like for example, this group, if you want to speak, it's always better that you introduce yourself and say, I am so-and-so and I have a question. So sometimes what happens is, right now I can see about 25 to 30 people on the screen, and there are multiple screens now. But I won't know who's asking a question unless you name yourself. So it's easy for me to identify you if you mention your name. So therefore, be polite, introduce yourself. Always on a video call, particularly when you're doing an online mediation, particularly, don't do anything else, like checking emails, reading something else, checking your phone. Okay, what happens is the responses that we discussed, the active listening skills that we discussed, it goes completely against those active listening principles we have discussed now. Okay. And when you're talking, try to look into the camera as far as possible. Okay. But that is very difficult to follow because, there is a tendency to look at people who are on the screen to see whether they are listening or who is there and all that. So these are some of the do's and don'ts that we normally have to observe while we are communicating online, particularly in the context of online mediations. So I think that brings me to the end of whatever I wanted to say. So I want to throw it open to all of you to, if there are any questions or if you would like to add something to what I have said. There might be many things from your own experiences. You might have, come across many situations that I may not have seen or experienced. So I will definitely, be very happy to welcome any more information that will be useful for all of us. So many of you have done online trainings. I see many online trainers here. So there might be something very important that you might have. Please feel free to add. What do you say, Vikash?
Yeah, thank you. And the way you have expressed it, and the one point while you were summing up, you've done it very rightly. Once there are trained mediators, we would appreciate if somebody can post it on the chat also. And if he actually wants to share the knowledge, as they say, two heads are always better than one. But once you are saying that too many trained mediators, then I can say more than 100 heads are always better than one. And as they say, knowledge sharing is caring. And anybody who can give the insights would always be welcome. But be that as it may be.
Also,
yeah.
Also, any questions? Any questions are also welcome.
Questions are already there. Only two things are pouring in. One is praise about the way you expressed it, and number two, the questions have come in.
Yeah. So, shall we deal with the questions first, or would you like to go
I will do that because in case anybody wants to give a suggestion, he can post it on the chat box, or he can also raise the hand on the screen. We can take that person's suggestions also. And we will also, this is by TV Suresh. Is there any amendment law required to give legality to the online mediation, or the present law under CPC is enough?
That's a very good question. See, first of all, we need a law on mediation itself. Apart from online mediation, we need a law on mediation itself. And Supreme Court has taken the initiative in that, and it has constituted a committee to frame the, to give the framework of the kind of law that we need for mediations. And in that, definitely, for something will be needed to cover online mediations, because there are many issues that come up in online mediations. One of the, principal issues is confidentiality, because, we have seen in many mediations that parties are not sitting alone. Though the person is not visible in front of the camera, there's somebody else who's sitting beside the party, or, behind the computer or the device, and giving instructions to the party, or we don't know whether they are recording anything or whether they are going to use that information anywhere. So we definitely need a law which makes that, makes whatever is exchanged in a mediation confidential. And in fact, I am personally of the view that the law should also say that anybody who misuses the information which is collected through the mediation proceedings to be penalized for breach of confidentiality. So there should be some penalty also imposed, is what my view is. I don't know about how others feel about it, because that's the only way we can, protect the confidentiality. The second aspect is, see, as far as court annexed mediations, online mediations are concerned, it is easily, the identity of the parties is easily verifiable. Now, in private mediations, that may be a bit of a challenge, because we won't know who's sitting for us actually, whether they are the real party or whether they are the affected party. Like, for instance, two people can conspire with each other to cheat a third person of its property, create a dispute about the property, projecting each other as either the owner or the trespasser. And we can, they can come before the mediation and get one settlement agreement reached, which will be defeating the interests of the third party. So there should be some, the law should also regulate about the identity of parties who are coming before the mediators. So these are the two important things that I can immediately think of, which will be required to be covered by any law that might be coming into the field. Yes, Bala, madam.
Yeah.
Please unmute yourself.
Bala.
No, Mrs. Bala Natarajan.
No, they will not be able to do. You just tell the name, I will do it.
All right,
Nandini,
all right.
Probably Nandini Gore wants to ask.
All right, all right.
Nandini Gore, because she has raised the hand.
Okay.
She will have to also switch on the video. Nandini Gore.
Have you done it?
Yeah, ma'am, you will have to come on the video also.
Yeah, you, Nandini.
You can hear you? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Can you see me?
Yes, yes, we can see you.
Yeah. So Jawad, you have expressed it very nicely, and all the contents are there, and it is totally exhaustive, and I am really so obliged to you, to listening to you. Only one thing I just wanted to know, that is sometimes it happens that when you are in sitting in a mediation online, is it okay that we take some pause and we can tell the parties also that we will come back after 2 minutes or 1 minute short break? We can do that.
Yeah, that
or
is,
there is anything wrong?
nothing wrong with that. You can always take a break. Nothing wrong with taking a break. See, in a mediation, as you know, we have joint sessions and we have private sessions.
Yes.
So what we normally do if you are using the Zoom platform is we put the parties in breakout rooms.
Yeah.
For the private sessions. And while we are with one party, we tell the other party that please relax, please attend to any work that you have. And if once we come into your breakout room, we will give you a call and call you back, or we will just give a shout, keep your mic on so that we'll give a shout and you can come and join. So that is also possible. And also we tell them that, if you need a break or we need a break, we can always, just pause our cameras, mute the mics, take a break, come back and then start the mediation. You don't have to sign out and sign in again. Okay.
Correct.
So that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing I wanted to know, what you explained very nicely about empathy.
Yes.
You know, empathy is a different thing and sympathy is also is a, but when you're sitting in a room with them,
Yeah.
it's a totally different thing. But to express
Yes.
something, just give us some simple example of empathy.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem. There are many examples of empathy. See, empathy, what is empathy actually? It is a recognition of what the person has felt in the past or is feeling in the present. Okay, it is just a recognition. You show the person that you're understanding what the person is feeling. Okay. So what you do is, if supposing somebody is sitting in front of you and recounting a very unpleasant incident and saying that, you know, this person has what actually happened and feeling very bad about it, you say, simply you respond. Like for instance, you say, let's give an example of, you know, most of the time as we see happening in matrimonial mediations. If the wife is sitting there and she's crying and saying that the husband does not communicate with her, he's always on the phone, he's busy every time, and she's unable to talk to him, and she feels completely neglected. So you show your empathy by saying that, you know, you're obviously upset with whatever is happening. So in empathy, what you show the person is you understand how the person is feeling about it. I think somebody has to mute their mic. There's a lot of background noise coming. Can all of you mute, please? Yeah. So you show that you have understood the feeling. Okay. But you don't agree, because when you agree, it becomes sympathy. So you understand the feeling. So what happens is when you reflect back that the feeling of the party, it shows the party that here is somebody who is understanding how I feel about it. Okay. And it also helps the person to recognize the emotion that they're feeling. Because many times what happens is, I'm not a psychologist, but you know, from personal experience, I can tell you that many times when you're angry, for instance, you're not aware that you're angry. You may be raising your voice, you may be shouting, and then your husband or your wife, your spouse tells you, why are you angry? And then suddenly you realize, oh, I'm angry. So labeling the emotion helps a lot. Okay. So empathy is one way of labeling the emotion and showing the person that you understand that feeling that the person is experiencing.
The other is by Pradeep Kapadia. What should be done to make government to use mediation and bring down the government litigation?
Okay, we had a recent webinar where one of the Madras High Court judges participated, and this question came up because government being the biggest litigant, what happens if, being the biggest litigant, can we use mediation to resolve disputes with the government? Now, this is the biggest problem that we face in dealing, in mediating government disputes or disputes where government is involved is the decision-making power. Because what happens is, the person in charge of that particular department, the head of the department, may not be coming. They will probably send somebody who's low down in the hierarchy to take part in the mediation. Now, this person will not have the power to take decisions, number one. Number two is, even the person who can take decisions is answerable to somebody else. So the question of accountability comes, and they are scared that if we take a particular decision, tomorrow we might be called into question for that decision, and we may be accused of, taking some consideration or something for giving that decision. So these are some of the restrictions that we find. Like we were mediating one dispute, which involved the department, one of the government departments. And this particular IAS officer who attended the mediation told us that the other parties, who were a bunch of workers, their claim was a rightful claim. But the only problem was he cannot agree in a mediation to that, because that set a bad precedent. But if the court passes an order, he would be, agreeable. The government will accept the court's order and implement whatever needs to be done, what is claimed by the workers. So now what happened is, here the problem is, you can't tell this man that, look, why don't you settle in a mediation? For the simple reason, because he has a reason for it. He has an excuse for not taking part in the mediation. So what I feel is, if supposing, if the court, let's say the court is referring maybe some, a dispute which is there between the government and a private party to a mediation, the court should give the assurance to the person who's responsible to take decisions on behalf of the government of immunity against any future prosecution or accountability. If supposing that person has reached a decision that is acceptable to the court should give that kind of immunity, or the mediation law that is going to be brought about should incorporate something to that effect, which would say that if in a mediation, if a government official agrees to a particular set of terms of the agreement, and that is approved by the court, that person will have immunity from any kind of accountability at a later stage. So some kind of protection, if it is given, probably we can, a lot of government disputes might get settled through mediation. Now we can't really, there might be official reasons for the dispute. There might be unofficial reasons for the dispute. Okay, now we can't deal with those unofficial reasons. We only talk about the official reasons. Okay, I hope you understand what I mean by unofficial reasons.
This is how body postures play a role in mediation.
Well, body language is a very, it's a science in itself, actually, And in a mediation, as I said earlier, that almost 55% of the communication is through the body language. Because we human beings have evolved from animals. And animals communicate, because before we started learning to speak, and before language is developed, we depended completely on body language for communication. And sometimes, the words may say something, the body language may convey a completely different meaning. So whenever we are training for mediation, I always give a demonstration of, let's say that I'm coming to your house and you're offering me a chair, and I'm sitting on the chair and I'm shifting and I'm showing, I'm fidgeting in the chair. And then you ask me, Jawad, are you comfortable? And I say, yeah, I'm fine. But it shows that I'm not fine because I'm fidgeting. I'm not comfortable in the chair. So are you going to go by my words or are you going to go by my actions? So my body language shows something which is completely contradictory to my words. Now, if the chair is comfortable and I'm not fidgeting, and you ask me, are you comfortable? And I say, yeah, I'm fine. I use the same set of words which convey a completely different meaning. So you can see how important body language is. But the problem is, the challenge on an online platform is we are not able to observe that body language. The maximum that we can probably see would be the facial expressions of the person and the tone of voice, how the person is speaking. From that, we may have to, with that limited resource, we may have to judge as to what is being meant actually, whether the words really mean what they are what they sound like, or whether they mean something else. So that is the only resource that we have to find out on an online platform.
This is by Rupal. He says, I am doing LLM in ADR and I'm interested in research on mediation. Sir, how do you deal with the non-binding feature of mediation?
What do you mean by non-binding? See, mediation is, we call it as a without prejudice process. It is non-binding only up to the stage of agreement. That is, parties have the flexibility, have the freedom to make any admissions, to make any offers, to place any proposals, to withdraw those offers, to change those proposals, to withdraw anything that they are offering in the mediation. They can do anything they want till they reach an agreement. The agreement is reached only after testing all the different permutations and combinations, after seeing whether that is the best possible agreement that can come about, after ensuring that the parties are fully satisfied. So once they are satisfied and they reach an agreement and they sign it, it becomes binding. Until then, it is non-binding, which means it is a without prejudice process. So they are free to discuss anything they want. So that is what we mean by non-binding when we say that mediation is a non-binding and without prejudice process. But there is a point on which it becomes binding, and that point is the final agreement that is reached between the parties and signed by them in whatever manner that it requires to be signed.
This is by Avartika. I have a query talking about online mediation competition. Can you please brief the role of a counselor?
No, I didn't get the question. Can you repeat, Srikash?
He says, I have a query talking about online mediation competition. Can you please brief the role of a counselor?
See, counselor, in what context are you talking about a counselor? Counselor can be maybe somebody who is, a psychiatric counseling can be done by somebody. Or even in some jurisdictions, lawyers are called as counselors. So counselor is basically somebody who's trying to understand the party's emotional condition and trying to help the party to deal with the particular situation. It is more of a therapeutic way of doing things. Mediators may not be counselors. I don't think that there is a difference between if you're trying to say that, whether mediation is counseling. No, it is not. Because sometimes counselors may also advise parties or put them on a particular way of doing things. I'm not a trained counselor, so I really don't know what is the scope of a counselor's role, but all I know is that...
He's asking as a lawyer. He's actually, rather than counselor, he should have put as a counsel.
Yeah, as a lawyer, yes, that's a different thing. Because as a counsel, if you're appearing in a mediation, it is called as mediation advocacy, and there are programs which train you to be a mediation advocate, because it needs a completely different approach from how you would approach in the adversarial context. Because as a mediation advocate, you have to be more collaborative. You have to see not just what is the legal remedy that your client is entitled to. You have to go beyond that and see what the future interests of your client are and how those interests can best be served without necessarily getting stuck in any kind of, legal, what should I say, a legal definition of rights and wrongs. So as a mediation advocate, you have a far more important role to play because you'll be guiding your client to identify the long-term interests and trying to see how best those interests can be secured. Apart from that, also do a reality check with your clients on what their expectations are, on what their positions are. You also have to test the viability of any agreement that may be reached in a mediation. So it is it's quite a very interesting role actually. It goes far beyond what you will be doing as a lawyer in a court case or in an arbitration.
We're just taking 2-3 questions.
I think Mrs. Bala Natarajan is raising her hand.
In fact, we had tried to unmute her, but she didn't unmute.
She's unmuted.
I have unmuted.
Yeah. She wanted to ask something about
yes.
Virtual.
Good evening. Good
evening, Jawad. This is about a virtual background. Can we insist on the parties and their counsel to avoid using virtual background, because with respect to confidentiality, it can help us. We can find out whether there is anybody else in the room, though we tell them not to allow anybody else in the room.
Yes, you can tell them that please don't use any virtual background because the image itself gets distorted. The video comes in a very distorted way.
Yes.
Because in one of the recent webinars, one of my co-panelists was touching his head, and it looked as if there was a separate hand that was coming and touching his head, because this part was completely invisible. Because there can be a lot of distortion, and also we don't know whether anybody else is there in the room or whatever. So we can insist that there should not be any virtual background.
So they cannot refuse, no?
Well, then again, see, parties are entitled to refuse.
Yeah, that is what, because
yes,
then,
but you can explain to them that look, this is the reason why, because you can give the technical explanation for that, the technical reason for that, because it distorts the whole thing. The image of the party itself gets distorted if you use a virtual background, and therefore we request you not to use it.
Because we cannot tell any other reason because they may mistake us. regarding
Yeah, they
confidentiality.
might. Yeah, basically it's about trust and rapport. So we have to be a little careful on how we convey that.
Basing on the facts and circumstances and basing on
Yes,
the
yes.
parties and their
Yeah,
complaints.
yeah.
Thank you, Jawad. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Yes, Vikash, any other questions?
Yeah, this is by, it should be Abhishek only. He says, is there any book to study on this thing or any video on these aspects of mediation?
Which aspects do you want to talk about?
Because he has said books, I think personally, since he wants to talk basically if to understand the concept of mediation, any video or this thing.
No, there are many books. One is written by our own Mr. Sriram Panchu on mediation. So that book I think is available on Amazon or I don't know whether there's any other bookstore that you can buy it from. But that is a very fairly comprehensive book on which he covers everything about the different facets of mediation. Then there's a book by Christopher Moore on mediation, which is regarded as a sort of a Bible for mediation. It's a treatise which covers every aspect of mediation. Then from the negotiation perspective, because mediation being basically facilitated negotiation, one book that is indispensable is Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury. That gives on how negotiations can take place and, you know, interest-based negotiation, integrative bargaining, all these concepts are discussed in that book. Because that book and William Ury and Roger Fisher changed the whole perspective of negotiation, because earlier negotiation used to be positional negotiation. It used to be based on rights, power, and positions. But they changed the whole concept and brought in the concept of interest-based negotiation. So that book is something which is very important for every mediator, every negotiator to read. In fact, for every lawyer also to read that book. So these are all some of the books. I can pass on to Vikash a whole list of books.
I will share it on the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Christopher Moore, Moore. I will give the title of the book and also the authors to Vikash so that he can share it with all of you.
Yeah. Now we have Vikrant Sharma, who is one of the leading mediators out here. You would have been knowing him from Punjab, Haryana. He says, how to write a compromise in the absence of party.
How to?
Write a compromise in the absence of parties.
But in a mediation, is it?
Yeah.
How can a mediation take place in the absence of parties?
Probably wants to express that, let's assume it's an online, their parties have settled. Then how to arrive with that party that they have actually arrived in, or to take the signatures, etc. Like, let's assume there's a party.
Okay. Yeah, I follow.
That's what I'm gathering from those expressions.
Okay. So you see, from that perspective, what happens is normally what we do is, I normally do my mediations on a Zoom platform. I use Zoom for that because it has a breakout room feature and screen sharing and all is very convenient. There are, of course, other applications also which are equally convenient. So what I normally do is when parties reach an agreement, I share a Word document on the screen and I type out the broad terms of the agreement on screen by discussing with the parties and with their lawyers who will be present in the mediation. So once they agree that these are the broad terms, then this I email to the counsel of both the parties and they finalize the agreement and they exchange the agreement with each other, get the parties' signatures, and they forward it to the mediation center or each to each other. If it is a private mediation, they exchange the agreement signed by the respective parties. So what happens is I have, like, for example, if Vikash and I are the two parties, then I have one agreement which is signed by Vikash and Vikash has an agreement which is signed by me. So we exchange that or we get together and sign together the agreement, it becomes final. And that is forwarded to whichever forum that is dealing with the mediation. If it is a court annexed mediation program, mediation, or if it is a private mediation, that becomes either on agreed terms under the Arbitration Conciliation Act, in which case it needs to be stamped like an arbiter award, or it is treated as a Lok Adalat, because Afghan's case, 2012 Supreme Court, it has said that mediation is Lok Adalat, is deemed to be a Lok Adalat if it is private mediation. That is what Supreme Court has said, if I remember correctly. So whatever needs to be done with the Lok Adalat award needs to be done with the mediation agreement also. The same process has to be followed.
2 books, what you had shared, the people have shared.
Yeah.
This is by PK Savita Balakrishna. It says the mediation process,
Yeah.
practical strategies for resolving conflict.
Yeah,
That
by
is
Christopher Moore, and I
Moore.
think
And by Mr. Sriram Panchu, it is
yeah,
Practice and Law by Sriram Panchu.
mediation and practice by Sriram Panchu.
Yeah.
Mediation and practice by Sriram
It says
Panchu.
it's available on Amazon for around
Yes, it
12
is available on Amazon.
on
Yes,
available
that's
on
right.
Amazon.
Yeah.
So we have taken the questions and thank you. In fact, when we had talked about it, I never knew that the communication skills itself would have so many facets to understand. And rather, I will take a step forward. The way you have expressed it, these are also the expressions while we are going, since, as they say, new is the normal. Even during the course of arguments during the virtual platform hearings,
Yes.
that entire principles, I can say there is an overlapping of that you have to be pleasantly putting across the lighting arrangement. These
Yes.
all are the facets which even are actually helping and facilitating, or what I can say, catalyzing for the purposes of the virtual hearings also.
Right.
Because if the light is not bright, if you are not giving a pleasing looks,
Yeah.
because the connectivity is also an issue. It's not
Yes,
that once
yes.
connectivity poor and then in a virtual
Yeah.
court hearing, you just say an expressions. And taking cue from what you had said, like you said of Mr. Venkatraman that he's also a trained mediator, and he says that you have to draw 2 ears and one tongue. And they say, in fact, the God decided that way, that
Yes.
tongue is in the center and the ears are at this thing.
Sides,
So,
yeah.
it is more like a funnel. So you have to choose what is to filter out. And another aspect with the distinction they say between the tongue and the ears are that if you find that it is going to be something painstaking or it can hit someone, you can hear from this ear and throw it out.
Throw
But
out the phone.
sometimes it's a tongue. If you hear from this side and you don't like it and you just put it out from your tongue, it can also create a problem. Like in a
yeah.
mediation, it was commonly said that in a lighter vein, they said that why there is a fight between the husband and wife. He says that I try to avoid because what she says, I hear from this side and throw it out. And from the other side, they say, why there is a difference? He says the difference is that she hears from here and she comes out with the tongue. So they say that the control of tongue and the communication, ears and tongue have to play a pivotal role. There has to be a balance between the two. And thank you, Mr. Jawad. And we are so delighted that you accepted it. As they say that patience brings the best fruit, we were just trying to ask you to make the request, and I could understand why you were so busy, because the way you explained the role of communication in such a subtle manner, it actually expressed why people actually ask for you that you should come and express. And friends, Mr. Jawad would also give another talk. The date we will share with you on this aspect. We are in fact having 2 more webinars on these online, because online mediation is one which is going to grow with the flux of time. It's not that when what we say new is the normal, when the things even get normal, people will try to continue to have the facilities, because as they say, good things continue to remain for all times to come, even if the things it changed came for this. As they say, old order changeth, yielding place to new. So I can only say because of these testing times, what new things have come, the better growth is that you keep on taking the good parts and we can weed out the best. Just like in a mediation settlement that we can discuss everything like what Mr. Jawad said, hear everyone, but ultimately when you draw the settlements, draw what is good according to everyone. In the same way, we can take all cues from the new testing times, but whatever is good, we can continue to remain with that. And thank you, Mr. Jawad. The way you expressed the different aspects and different perspectives have given a different flip. And thank you to all those participants who are watching us live on the Facebook and on this platform for during a working day and tomorrow courts being on, gate being glued, but I think Mr. Jawad is more like a Fevicol that he put everyone glued despite the fact that there is courts. And this is the communication which one has to learn, that even if one has a professional work, to learn the nuances of not only mediation but also of physical expressions is what we have learned today. And this video would also be uploaded on our channel of Beyond Law CLC. You can watch that, and the previous sessions are already uploaded on that. Everyone stay safe and stay blessed. Tomorrow we have amongst us Justice S.D. Anand. He would be speaking on functional facets of Indian justice delivery system. So do stay connected and tuned with us at 4 p.m. Everyone stay safe, stay blessed. And Mr. Jawad, thank you on behalf of all the participants. We actually had a day having insights from you. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Vikash, and all of you for being here, for being so patient and listening throughout. Thank you so much. If you can possibly, Vikash, are you saving the chat messages so that I think there are a lot of questions that have come up on chat which we have not been able to answer.
No, I don't think that any we have missed. It's only in cases, one I can take last one.
Okay.
In cases consists of high conflict career cases in court. How can mediation help in these cases?
High conflict carrier cases, how can? Those are the actual cases that are fit for mediation, because if it involves the relationship, if there's an ongoing relationship and there are elements of settlement, any case can be referred to mediation. So there is no such thing as case being unfit for mediation, except cases where, for example, the court has to lay down some judicial precedent or interpret the law, or where maybe some urgent interim orders are required to protect the rights of a party. But again, those interim orders can be passed and parties can still be referred to mediation. That is one of the biggest problems with our Commercial Courts Act, because though it makes pre-litigation mediation mandatory, it provides a loophole by saying if you require an urgent interim order, you can bypass the mediation and come to the court. Whereas the Act should have said that you can come to the court, get an interim order, but you have to go back for mediation. So that would have been a better option. So there's a possibility that people can bypass mediation and come to the court directly under the guise of getting some interim orders. So in my view, there are no such cases, because now the law is advancing, making so many advances. Even in criminal matters, we are exploring the concepts of restorative justice and so on, where and neuroscience has also shown that criminals are not born, they are made. So there are ways of reforming criminals, and there are ways in which you can mediate even criminal cases. So I'm of the view that there are cases which can be mediated. All kinds of cases can be mediated, provided parties participate in the mediation in good faith. There is a bona fide participation, and the mediators possess the sufficient skills to guide the parties towards a resolution. So thank you once again. Yes.
Before parting for the day, some people actually wanted to know about your online training, because like people like us who know you have been taking online training also. Could you just send the text on the chat so that people can know how to contact?
Yeah, I have shared my number, Vikash. So anybody is interested, they can call.
No, just give what you all do that training, so that numbers people actually know about you. But what will you do in that online training so that those who actually want to learn about that, they can understand and
we have a course coming up from 5th to 9th of October in online mediation. So can I do one thing? Can I share the flyer with you so that you can?
Yeah, I'll post it in the group.
That will be better, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
Or I've given my number, so if they contact me, give the WhatsApp number or something, I can share it with them.
I can reshare, or you can reshare your number.
Yes,
yeah,
I'll just share.
I'll just post it. No, I'm just posting it.
Okay.
So they can post a WhatsApp chat to you, and they can contact you.
Yes,
those who actually want to. This is only the little window to the entire world of online mediation. So that, like what they say, it's a common dialogue. Ye to bhi trailer hai mere dost, picture to bhi baaki.
Mediation is a life skill, Vikash. Mediation is a life skill.
You only learn with the flux of time. These are all trainings. Just like lawyer, what you do, sometimes we share that after drafting it, you feel that this is the best draft which has come forth. And after 6 months, you feel that this was the draft which I had drafted, or it was drafted by some
Somebody else.
associate of us.
Yeah.
Because you drafting of the understanding of the subject, the drafting of placing of
That's
the
true.
facts in a different
Yes,
manner.
yes,
It's
yes,
all,
yes.
they say that life is like a cycle. You have to keep on paddling.
Yeah.
And the moment you stop paddling, that is the moment you stop learning. You
Learning.
will only fall. So the best way is to keep on learning, keep on chiseling your right sense in the right perspective. So thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
And congratulations to you, Vikash. You have picked up a lot of philosophy on the way.
Learning nuances from you.
Great. Congratulations. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.